Yeah, I just woke up and I can confirm that Los Angeles is the city of dreams. It's also the city of sky-high rent, traffic, and burnout. Meanwhile, just 25 miles about that way is Long Beach, offering something completely different. Okay, but the truth is, I actually love LA and Long Beach for different reasons. And today, even if I may be biased myself, I'm not here to pitch you on one over the other because I want to help you guys discover what's best for you based off what your needs are and your immediate priorities, because they're different for everybody. And as someone who's lived and worked in both LA and Long Beach, I want to give you guys a better idea of what exactly that looks like. So today, we're going to break it down and analyze what makes Long Beach, LA a good option, and choosing between both of these juggernauts can drastically influence the day-to-day life that you live, your budget, and the way that you experience the world around you. I've worked with countless clients helping them buy and sell in both cities, watching neighborhoods evolve over time, and helping them navigate this process for themselves. So let's break down what makes these cities great and which one makes most sense for you. Size matters, so let's start there because Los Angeles is huge, and I mean really huge. It covers 469 square miles of distance from mountains to beaches. That makes it the largest city in California and only the second largest in the United States. To put that into perspective, you could fit 10 Long Beaches within the context and confines of Los Angeles. If you drive around LA even for a little bit, you'll notice that every pocket of LA can be vastly different. Venice is going to be way different than the Valley. The Valley is going to be different than South LA. South LA is going to be different than Mid-City. LA has so much to offer at each pocket, and each street in some instances can offer you a lot of variation depending on where you're at. But of course, with that, it does come a catch. The thing that you'll notice as soon as you live here is that Los Angeles is super spread out. And what that ultimately means is that people find themselves kind of living in a rhythm where they don't really tend to leave their part of LA. And people tend to kind of aggregate in their small little pockets. So that is kind of what you'll notice if you live in LA. Now, conversely, when you compare that against Long Beach, similar to Los Angeles, does have a lot of different pockets that offer different flavor, but because it's not as big, it's a lot more reasonable and practical mentally and physically speaking to get from one side of town to the other. So you could be in the shore in one moment and then get towards Bixby Knolls on Atlantic if you want to within 15-20 minutes and it not be a huge ordeal like it could potentially take you getting from one side of town to the other in LA that could potentially take over an hour.
Traffic, no more traffic.
Okay, so we will continue to talk about what the variety looks like in both cities, but before we do that, let's dive in a little deeper to what lifestyle looks like in both Los Angeles and in Long Beach. Los Angeles does have a faster paced pulse to it. When you look at life in Los Angeles compared to Long Beach, for example, it's almost tangibly different. You do feel, I guess part of what comes with the proximity to the beach, there is a little bit more of a relaxed sensibility that exists in Long Beach, all throughout Long Beach. Ambitious energy makes sense because this is where people come to chase their dreams. Dreams in tech, in entertainment, in fashion, whatever it is, people leave their homes from wherever they're from to come here to do one thing, and that is to make it big. And that does come across in the energy, which is not bad. It's actually wonderful, but it is something to be conscious of because it does come across in the way you live your life on a day-to-day basis. I think in a lot of ways, LA unfairly gets a bad rap of being superficial or being too transient. And I think the reason why people really say that is because they never truly found their sense of community, especially if they're coming from all around for that one express goal. The truth is, if you play your cards right, there's plenty of community here. It's just you gotta find yourself amongst the right people. Everything I said, I actually love about LA, but the truth is, there are some people who don't really appreciate that energy, and that's okay. The good thing is, there is an alternative that does offer you some of those similar flavors that you can find in LA, but at a slightly different pace, at a slightly different lifestyle. That's Long Beach. And I think if I were to try to describe that energy, we talked about how it has a slightly slower pace that comes with being a beach city, but I think there's also a sense of pride that comes with being someone who lives in Long Beach because there's a sense of assuredness of knowing who they are culturally speaking that makes it so they don't want to be anybody else. They're just confident and comfortable being who they are. That's my take on it, at least. And if you want to know more information like this going forward, make sure you subscribe to our video so that we can keep you in the loop on all things living in coastal Los Angeles and Long Beach. But back to the video. Okay, now before we talk about home prices and general real estate in these cities, I think we should take just a little bit of time talking about schools and how to get around, or what it's like getting around in both these cities. If you have kids or you have plans of starting a family, we all know how important this is. What I will say when comparing Long Beach and LA, there are some amazing schools in both school districts, LAUSD versus LBUSD. But if I were to compare them as a whole, I would say on average, LBUSD has better schools. In fact, there are a handful of schools in the Long Beach Unified School District that have been considered distinguished schools in California, and they've gotten that recognition because of their test scores and different things that if you are interested in checking out, you can go to greatschools.org to learn a little bit more for yourself. So the cool thing about Long Beach, for example, is that if you have a desire to go to a certain school that is not in your district, but has a certain element about it that is really desirable for you and your family, whether it's a dual immersion program or it has a STEM program, which there are some schools like that in Long Beach, there is something called School of Choice, where you can essentially enter a lottery program and through an application to apply to join one of those schools. I speak of this because it's something that we are currently navigating as we speak. So if you have any questions, feel free to message us. I think especially when we're talking about schools in Los Angeles, it's not always the case, but as a shorthand, typically the higher the price point in that given zip code, typically the schools tend to be a little bit better. And then on the collegiate level, I think the city has a lot of pride around the athletics in Long Beach for Cal State Long Beach. People rally around the teams, whether it's volleyball or basketball or whatever have you. But then of course, you can definitely make the same argument on an even larger scale in Los Angeles. Of course, between schools like USC, UCLA, you have these world-class institutions that have brand names that impact the rest of the world and not just the cities that they're part of. Okay, if I haven't already said it once, I'm gonna have to say it again. LA is at this point somewhat infamous for the traffic that its residents experience. I think there was a stat that I read not too long ago that said that on average, residents in LA experience over 100 hours of traffic annually, which makes sense because people have to travel a considerable amount to get around from the places they live, the places they work, the places where they hang out. It's all typically pretty spread out, which leads to people being in the car pretty regularly. If we get to work together in the future, one of the first questions that I like to ask my potential clients when we're navigating where they're going to work is to get a better sense of where they do life every day, between work, between where they exist within community. Those are really important things to consider because one of the factors that you have to account for when you're navigating where you're gonna buy a home is the implication of traffic. And then in regards to public transportation, Long Beach has a bus system called the Long Beach Transit, and then it also has the Metro line. These are certainly options that you can rely on. I've had clients who have in the past lived in Long Beach and commuted using the Metro to get to downtown Los Angeles. It's an amazing option to completely avoid having to step in traffic and have a seamless way to get back and forth between LA and Long Beach. That being said, there are some instances where it could get kind of weird depending on your comfortability with that kind of thing. It's certainly something you should look into if you are considering your options based off of public transit. And not to mention, Long Beach is one of Southern California's most friendly bike cities with over 60 miles of bike paths. This is perfect for those who want to remain active, save money on gas, and also want to maintain a healthy lifestyle. You are potentially starting to get a little bit of flavor of what your options are and what it looks like to live in both places, but you can't make a decision without knowing what the houses cost and what they get you. So let's talk about that next. So as of March 2025, the median home price in Long Beach was just over $850,000. And when you compare that against Los Angeles, it was just shy of $950,000. So it gives you a little bit of an idea of the differential there. And this is part of the process that Loza and I went through when we were navigating if we should move from LA to Long Beach, because in addition to the variance in price, we also knew that moving to Long Beach could get us a little bit more bang for our buck for the space and the location that we were going to be able to afford. We talked about it a little bit in some of our previous videos, but there are so many different flavors that you can get depending on what pocket of Long Beach that you're looking at. In the shore, you can find beautiful Spanish Mediterranean homes. In the Alamitos Beach area, you'll find 1 to 2 bedroom condos. In Bluff Heights, you have these gorgeous historic homes on large lots. Luxury, we talked about Naples having waterfront properties that can go up to $10 million and so on. Now everyone's seen the movies and we all know what the Bel Air mansions and Beverly Hills mansions look like on TV, which can go from 10 to 20 to 30 and beyond $1 million. For a lot of our clients, we've seen folks who have found their entry points in Los Angeles, in Silver Lake and Studio City, and different communities that have access to some good schools with price points that range anywhere between the $1.2 to $2.5 million range. And even if you're looking for something that's a little bit more budget friendly in LA, there are plenty of options there too. If you look in the Valley, in like the Northridge or even Van Nuys areas, you'll find properties in the 700, 800 range that are a lot more accessible. Similarly, you can find properties south of the 10 in South LA, depending on the pocket. They could also be in that 750, 800 pocket that are kind of in emerging neighborhoods as well. So there is a little bit of everything for everybody. But all that being said, I think this is the general rule that you should keep in mind. Long Beach will ultimately, this is a good rule of thumb, will give you a little bit more space in terms of the actual living area and the lot for your dollar. That's just the reality. If you want a little bit more space, Long Beach is going to afford you that. Of course, the caveat is that that's going to depend on where exactly you live. But when you compare luxury for luxury, entry point for entry point, Long Beach will get you a little further. So ask yourself this question, and there's no wrong answer. Would you rather have a smaller home in a trendy part of LA, or would you rather have a larger home in Long Beach and what is considered a more up and coming area? You decide. Now, my friends, we've arrived at our final step that you should consider before you determine whether you should live in Long Beach or LA. One way in which I think Long Beach and LA are definitely similar is that they are both equally diverse and inclusive. And I think one way in which Long Beach sets itself apart is that it sits well with its own sense of uniqueness, and that comes across in its sense of pride in city and its sense of community that it's fostered. To be honest, I think the best of both worlds is living in Long Beach and having access to LA, which is really the way we live our life. So who might be happier in Long Beach? If you're someone who wants to avoid as much traffic as possible, if you want access to a cheaper price point that gives you a little bit more space and bang for your buck, if you want access to kayaking or water sports, sailing without the similar high price tag that you might get somewhere on the coast in LA, then Long Beach might be for you. So who might be happier in Los Angeles? Well, if you are in the city for something related to entertainment, or you're in tech and you need to be towards Silicon Beach, or you need to be closer to downtown, or if you just have a little bit more money to spend that allows you to buy in a pocket that will allow you to have a little bit more of that kind of centralized feel with access to great schools, then maybe LA might be right for you. As someone who has helped countless families navigate this transition, this has become one of my favorite parts about this job. To play a small part in helping people navigate tactfully one of the most important financial decisions they're gonna make, and that is the purchase of their home. But the thing is, it's not just a financial decision, it's also something that affects your family, your mental health, and your daily living. So there are so many things to consider, and we love to give you our insight based off our experience to help you make the perfect choice for you. So if that is you, feel free to message us at our email at tedrosteam@gmail.com, or you can reach us at our number, 562-554-7534, and we look forward to talking to you soon. But if you do want to kind of take a more high-level look at what it looks like to live in Long Beach, we actually made a video previously the other week that goes into what it's like to live in Long Beach. So make sure to check that out. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, and we're here to help you navigate what it looks like to live in Long Beach and Los Angeles every week, same time, same place. Peace.